Genji and Hanzo Shimada, the two brothers, are the benchmarks of unique hero design that caught the world by storm, firstly through the incredible Dragon cinematic, and secondly through the very fun gameplay offering. However, beyond their flash abilities and playmaking potential lies what could be argued as an unjustified approach to either hero's kit and how they've been watered down over time with unnecessary changes in order to appeal to a vocal crowd of irrelevant complaints from a side of the community that just generally suffers from a skill issue, and honestly I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Both heroes have been made weaker in terms of stats relative to the rest of the game, as other heroes have been buffed up over time to fit into a world of Overwatch post Season 9, which can be argued that the Season 9 changes were some of the worst changes the game has ever seen, because rather than solving the problems it was meant to, it created new ones, and to then resolve these problems, it now feels like stats throughout the game are being adjusted over time to make the game feel like what it did pre-Season 9 rather than just reverting the Season 9 changes altogether. Season 9 changes are extremely important to keep in mind because they did affect Genji and Hanzo somewhat heavily than the rest of the cast, more now than ever before. Blizzard did try to approach both SHIMADA brothers with an increase to the speed of both brothers' ultimate. In Genji's case, he was able to swing the blade faster. In Hanzo's case, his dragons were traveling forward faster. However, an argument can be made over here that both of these changes were a net nerf to the characters. They didn't actually achieve what they were supposed to achieve, which was to make the ultimates feel stronger. Rather, both ultimates actually felt somewhat weaker. First of all, in both characters' cases, and I do understand that overbuff isn't the most reliable source, but it's all I have at the moment, the kills from both ultimates have dropped here and there progressively as we go from season to season. It is only now in this current 225 HP era where some characters have 225 HP that Genji's ultimate is beginning to feel a little bit better because of how supports can enable it to one-shot. So I'm not gonna, be dishonest and say that at least Genji's feeling somewhat better. Hanzo, on the other hand, is a completely different story, but I'll get to that. Regardless, that aside, the SHIMADAs still have been treated poorly in how Blizzard has approached their balance. I want to remind everybody the entire point of the Season 9 changes was that they wanted to reduce the power in one-shots, adjust the time to kill, and whilst this was initially achieved, they started experimenting all over the place with the entire roster and it went in all sorts of direction. Eventually we got to the Kaiju Watch season where every tank got turned into a behemoth of a raid boss that can still feel really incredibly stressful to play against. But my biggest problems with the changes that came to the Kaiju tanks weren't the fact that the tanks got tankier. I was very open-minded to that. It was the fact that tanks got entire breakpoint changes to help them secure kills better. Why? I thought the entire point of Season 9 was that we wanted to tone down the feeling of burst damage in general, and yet we increased it over time. At first it was tank that got the raw damage increase, some supports got it here and there, and it just became more and more frustrating to watch. The most irritating change to me by far is one that came recently where Moira's ultimate got a raw damage number increase, with Blizzard's excuse being that the ultimate didn't feel threatening enough. Yes, Blizzard, God forbid a support ultimate is actually designed to support her team and isn't a gateway to the most mind-numbing TikTok clips that you can find online, but whatever, anything for the Moira mains, right? Alright, my little jokes and jabs aside, my main issue with the changes is that the SHIMADAs were just genuinely being left behind. I've already made an in-depth video breaking down Genji's issues and what he needed. Indirectly, some of the cast members going to 225 has helped him out, so I'm not going to sit here and be dishonest that Genji isn't feeling better, but I would still argue that he's still suffering, from the same issues. His damage numbers are still pathetic against the crazy high healing and sustain in the game that is present today, and his windows of opportunity on when and where he can make a play is incredibly tight and stressful to do. Essentially, you have to be playing Genji near perfectly in order to get any value on the hero whatsoever, unless, you're in silver or low plat lobbies where people don't realize you can just stop shooting, deflect, to not kill yourself, but I digress. The hero should still get his 28 damage shuriken back. I think 29 in 5v5 is too OP. I think 27 is a bit underwhelming. I think 28 is the best middle ground. He wasn't even broken with it back in Overwatch 1 and 6v6, so I don't think he'll be that crazy with it in Overwatch 2 either. I'm willing to have Dragon Blade be weaker as long as the neutral feels better from his side of the input and not because the game has molded into a state where he can be played, because at that point it's just a matter of time where either he gets another unjustified nerf or the meta changes to a point where the hero's just garbage again. Speaking of Dragon Blade, I find it hilarious that whenever Blizzard has tried to approach this ultimate, their explanations are that they don't want Genji's blade to be reliant on support ultimates, and yet, even now, the only time Genji is ever good is because a support ultimate is enabling Blade to be more powerful. This time, it's Juno's orbital ray that's helping Genji out. even more. Crazy how perhaps the problem can be solved the same way Hanzo's Dragon Strike problem was solved back in Overwatch 1 Season 10, where you make it so that you cannot damage boost Blade, give him healthier breakpoints on Blade, and then leave the hero alone. Regardless, it is what it is, and the Genji cycle continues. On the other side, Hanzo has been treated by far the worst of any character in this game, right next to Sombra. Hanzo's entire identity from day one and the way he was designed is that he was supposed to be a mid-ish to long-range-ish sniper, and then for a couple of seasons his ability to snipe had been completely stripped, and the hero felt incredibly clunky to play and just felt incredibly reliant on his storm arrows. Progressively through the seasons, the balance team realized that yes, indeed, a sniper's entire core gameplay should revolve around him being able to snipe. I don't know how it took them that long to figure it out, but they did. Woohoo! Good for you, Blizzard. So Blizzard finally gave his Hanzo his one-shot back, but at the cost of giving him the biggest disadvantages I've ever seen for any hero. Firstly, he has his original pre-season 9 projectile size versus everybody else's increased sizes. That alone is a massive nerf in a shooter game. He then has the slower draw speed and his damage scales to his draws. So unless you're going for the one-shots, trying to take duels is just incredibly difficult because now he's a much worser duelist. His ultimate has been net nerfed and cannot be used as a zoning tool because of how fast it is, and the kills on the ult have still dropped if you look at overbuff and anything is to go by. The 250 HP that he has now gotten back is literally the bare minimum they could have done because they just conveniently forgot about it in the previous season where, you know, he did get his one shot back and he still had 225 HP. He also still cannot charge his shots while climbing walls, which hurts some of his ability to set up some shots. He also is one of the easiest targets to dive in the game by far, and also one of the easiest targets to pick off with a rush comp off of a Lucio Juno speed boost, which is still the meta right now because his ability to respond to people quickly bursting him down is laughably weak. The hero has all this muscle on his arms, and yet the brother feels like he's never picked up a weight in his life with how abysmally slow the draw speed is. Hanzo needed the 250 HP back, which he has now gotten back, and in my opinion, he could still use the draw speed back too. Honestly, the projectile size being as small as it is a massive nerf to the character on its own, and they can even do that to the storm arrows. I don't know why they didn't do it to storm arrows, and it's weird because the thing that they have said about Hanzo is that they don't like it when his playstyle is revolving around being cheesy and spamming down chokes, but the one ability that allows him to spam down a choke is never being addressed, and arguably that is the most problematic part in his kit, at least in my opinion. Pressing E, looking down a choke and getting a free pick is less skillful and less enjoyable than actually drawing the bow, lining up a shot, and then landing a headshot. Right, so with all that being kept in mind, how do I want to help the Shimadas? I obviously do not want to break the heroes or make them overpowered. I just want them to feel better. In Hanzo's case, Blizzard already gave him the 250 HP, which was my initial suggestion, and I would go further and give him his draw speed back, and as a compensation to nerf another part of his kit is I would nerf storm arrows damage and his projectile size to match his current normal arrows that he shoots out, and yes, they're both currently different sizes. It's incredibly annoying to keep in track of, isn't it? Furthermore, Dragon Strike should be reverted to the slower speed so that it can still be used as a zoning tool and set up shots for him that, you know, you could do. All that paired with heavy nerfs to Storm Arrow, as I previously mentioned, would just help Hanzo feel better as a hero, and then just leave the guy alone. He just comes and goes with the meta, and that's fine. In Genji's case, as I've stated before, healing is still strong as it is, and that will probably never be nerfed directly in any way which matters. So I just appreciate if the hero got 28 damage shurikens to help him with his breakpoints, and if I want to push it, I'm tired of his ultimate being reliable only on support ultimates to enable it. If anything, I would finally like it if his ultimate cannot be damage boosted and let his blade have the 120 breakpoint again, so at least his original normal Dragon Blade combos can return and the hero can feel better and more fun to play again. Before I do end this video, I do wish Blizzard would just have a better approach to balancing heroes in general. Just because popular heroes are popular doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be nerfed or made clunkier. It just means people enjoy playing them or enjoy the characters standalone. Popular heroes will always be played, and the majority of casuals will always complain about popular heroes like Genji and Hanzo because firstly, they're almost always going to be seen, so it's easier to complain about something that you see all the time, not necessarily realizing whether it's a skill issue or if the hero is actually broken. That's just something that I genuinely want to be considered within Team 4's balanced team for Overwatch, that could genuinely be the case. It might just be people have a skill issue and they need to get better at the game. After all, isn't that kind of the point of playing competitive player versus player games that we're trying to get better against one another, and we should approach heroes from a skill to reward ratio. Anyways, in any competitive game, you're always playing to improve, and you're not trying to find something new for Daddy Blizzard to tone down so you can climb from gold 5 to gold 4. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoy this type of content and want more, do let me know. I have a lot of videos coming out this week, so if you are new to the channel or still keeping up with it, do subscribe. You can check out the Patreon if you want to support me in other ways, and I appreciate everything you guys have done for me and where you've brought this channel, and hope we can take it even further. With that being said, I will see you in the next video.